three conversationalists come from very different kind of disciplinary backgrounds and very different life experience backgrounds and orientations. And we'll start then with you, Mohasin. So over to you, please. Thank you.
Yeah, hello. Thank you so much for having me here again. And it's been a really interesting past couple of days. I wasn't really sure what to expect because I haven't attended anything like this before. And although I'm a student, I've not had much experience in like academic settings like this, but it's been a really enriching experience. And I think the first kind of thoughts that I had from yesterday when thinking about the other and how we encounter that and the discussions about language, especially yesterday, the first thing that kind of came to my mind was some of the language that's been used over the past 2 days might not be so accessible to people who are not from an arts humanity background or kind of an academic background. And I think that's an important point when we try to think about how we can include the other, because obviously a lot of people from backgrounds that might be marginalised or might experience more inequalities may not have as much opportunity to engage with opportunities like this. So I think that opening things up and thinking about language, not just in terms of cultural languages or like sign language and different forms like that, we should also think about language in terms of fields, if it's specific to a field or if it's kind of easy to read for a lay person. And one of the prompts that was shown about the dance, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was talking about how is performance or drama a good way to display research, something like that. And I think actually that kind of ties into what I've been thinking, because movement and dance and the body is something that we can all understand because we all have a body, and seeing that experience being played out is something that can be quite beneficial to people who might not be able to understand the words or the context of things that we're talking about. So I do think that performance and drama can be a really useful tool to display research and to make it more accessible. Thank you.
That's lovely, Mohasin. Thank you. Is there anything else you want to add? I didn't interrupt you, did I?
Oh no, that was it for now.
That's lovely. Thank you very much. Those are really important issues that you raise, and really at the heart of the questions that we have around the encounter, what it means to really kind of engage and talk and interact. So thank you for raising those points. We really appreciate it. Okay, Nigel, over to you.
Thanks very much. I've really enjoyed and learned from these 2 days. I know I risk sounding like a broken record because I've kept emphasizing the human and the individual as opposed to cultural categories. But I'm going to mention some of the highlights as I've heard them in people's presentations, starting with Maggie and her call for us to imagine an ethical framework that doesn't essentialize or categorize otherness, and how creating what she called an embodied drama might be a means to encounter the other. And there was then a resonance between the notion of an embodied drama and Charlotte's phrase that that flesh was the medium of knowledge, which I found a provocative thing to think with, how knowledge and consciousness are limited to the body. Kate Fellows asked the question, how do we create a space where people can meet as individuals, and individuals in their internal multiplicity or diversity or contrariety can meet? How to create what she called comfortability, as against labels and boxes. How might we find a way for individuals to meet in a safe shared space? And this was really what my notion of cosmopolitan politesse was about. I also found it stimulating when Mohasin, sorry if I got the pronunciation wrong, said don't reduce individuality to an acronym, whether it's BAME or LGBTQ plus, because reducing individuality to any acronym dispels freedom and inclusivity. And she flagged 3 words that I think are very important in this endeavor: love, respect, and safety. She said that we can quite clearly see the distance between self and other, and she felt that we might overcome distance. I think I would diverge from her there. I don't think distance can be overcome. It's a matter of respecting it, acknowledging it, and finding ways through things like silence and reticence, and what Irigaray calls loving speech, to deal with that distance without trying to interpret your way beyond it. And finally, I'm going to risk an emotive example, which came from a reaction of Angela's when she saw the dance performance that featured a woman after menopause, and Angela said at that point that that she felt she was not sorry, that she could appreciate that category, and I'm not sure I described that. Well, yes, it's a social category, but it's also a natural fact. And I would want to emphasize its universality and its humanity, rather than its status as a social category. So a woman after menopause is for me more a natural fact, something universally shared, rather than a matter of a social category. If I was to elaborate on those bare terms, a woman after menopause, and I was to add words like a woman after menopause becomes an honorary male, and as an honorary male now is a recipient of respect, and as an honorary male and a recipient of respect can now accede to a public role as a chief, for example. If I was to elaborate on those bare terms, a woman after menopause, in this way, I would be moving from what I would deem natural fact into the realm of culture. In particular, these words come from the Mende from Sierra Leone, where a woman after menopause, and only then, becomes an honorary male who can then accede to respect and a public role. The distance I've traveled in elaborating on the natural fact of a woman after menopause in this cultural way is part of what I would want us to overcome, to work beyond, so that the natural fact becomes valued and respected and shared, rather than the cultural elaboration. Question mark.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's well, certainly I look forward to following up on that discussion, Nigel. So that's great. Thanks. It's very provocative, and we'll continue the conversation. Okay, so over to our last conversationalist, Adrian. I'll move out of the frame after I've shared. You want to share the?
Not yet.
No. Okay. Sorry. Okay.
A week or so ago, Angela and I were on Orkney, which for overseas participants is a group of 70 islands off the north coast of mainland Scotland. And there we were visiting Neolithic sites, which meant that we could see into the homes of people who lived 5,000 years ago at the site of Skara Brae. And we also came across and celebrated the centenary of the birth of the great Orcadian poet, George Mackay Brown. I started to think about how do we engage with what you might call the historical other. How do we engage with the other who lived 5,000 years ago? How do we engage with the other who lived in the 20th century? How do we engage with the distant other, the recent other, the reclusive other? George Mackay Brown lived on Orkney, lived in the same town, Stromness, all of his life, all of his 75 years. How do we engage with those individuals? How do we, in short, avoid presentism in our work? So rather than elaborate further theoretically on this, I thought I'd read a poem which engages with some of these encounters between those of different eras, perhaps. So I'm just trying to share the screen.
Can we just check?
Can you see it? Okay.
Yeah.
Is it large enough? Do I need to?
No, it's good.
You're in control now.
Okay, so the poem is called Brodgar. The ring of Brodgar is a set of is a stone circle, a Neolithic stone circle from around 5,000 years ago, and there are currently 27 stones standing in the circle. There are 27 couplets in the poem, which is dedicated to George Mackay Brown because he also wrote about the stones of Brodgar. Brodgar. A circle has no beginning or end. Call this the first stone. Drive out from Stromness in the Corvette, half cut as the dark sun sets. Capercaillie click, invisible in cover, nature's rhythm stick. Civilization, 5,000 years. Is this civilization? Raise your hat as you pass by the fiddler. The giants know that. Stella, rare muse of the Milnes Bar crowd, sound the morning bell. Online guides, no knowledge of the stones. Hordes pour from cruise ships. Darkening mind, morbus arcadensis, endless rain and wind. Point opaque at best, spiritual value not presently assessed. Ritual landscape, the sophisticated north, fish, salt, soil, fable. To keep people out or stones in, a hard dug ditch, 12 feet deep, rock cut. Purple green heather, monumental sea, black sky, hammerstone weather, Viking graffiti, Bjorn's runic hand, questions re-authenticity. Atomic waste bleeds unseen into Pentland Firth. Keep the cows from seaweed. Broga, without D, Old Bridge Farm. See Norse etymology. Mary Mackay takes the mailboat for Hamnavo, Fulma, Kittiwake. Saga, stanza, rune, ceremony, whiskey, island law. The occasional tune. A brief stir between silences. Launch birthday poems onto the open sea. A pagan wedding. iPhones set to video. Wind riffling ties and dresses. A pod of orcas. Hills half buried in the waves. Murderous waters. The postman, a sympathetic word for anyone in town. Stone cold mystery, intricate artifacts, use unknown. This is history. Herring scales stick to women's fingers, sequins back-stitched with silver. A cow's shoulder blade to shovel blown in sand. Today, every day. Farmers, homemakers, lovers, heartbreakers, movers and shakers. Astrology, no. Nothing to see in the stars. We know what we know. A circle has no end or beginning. Call this the last stone.